Well, welcome to The Kingdom is for Everyone. And we're doing something a little different here in this format because this is going to serve for our podcast and our TV show by the same name, The Kingdom is for Everyone with Matthew Hester. We are a little informal here today. I've actually been out spending some time with Bishop Jamie out and about on the town. And so, yeah, we're just casual. But I know what we're going to talk about, while still casual, is going to be deep and it's going to have substance to it. Right. And I don't think any of you actually need me to give an introduction to Bishop Jamie, but I will just say he's been a great friend, a great voice in my life, and just a lot of wisdom to draw from. And it's also fun because we can kind of just talk about anything. And he invites questions to every conversation and then asks some pretty darn good ones too, which I always appreciate. And so we're going to take some time. This is probably going to span over a couple of episodes. Actually, that probably won't be difficult to do at all. And so we're just going to share some things. And so, yeah, if you just want to start by greeting and saying hello to everybody, and we're going to jump into it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me again. It's always an honor, and had a excellent time. For those of you that follow Matt's ministry and Dominion Church, make sure you go to the 40th celebration live stream. Check it out. We had a great time yesterday celebrating 40 years of legacy of what his parents started, and now he's continuing, which is awesome to see. And it's always good to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, and we appreciate it. It was a blast.
Yeah, I agree.
40 years is surreal. Oh, my goodness.
That's true.
I feel like we're just getting started in a lot of ways, too. So, so one of the things we were kicking around at lunch, and I was discussing the theme. Now, on the podcast, it's been a theme now for the last 4 or 5 weeks. We've been talking about holy ground everywhere. Yeah. And I actually am releasing a series of books throughout the summer. The first volume released in June. Volume 2 dropped in July. By the time you're listening to this and watching this, it's already available. And then volume 3 is going to drop in August. The first volume was Finding the Sacred in Our Music. And volume 2, which is about to release, at least tomorrow, is going to be Finding the Sacred in the Academic World. So, I feel like a lot of times there's grace in music. There's grace in what we might call creative spaces. Yeah. But it's like you can't find good theology in science and philosophy and psychology. Are you serious? And so it makes me kind of lean in all the more. And, part of it, it was kind of my way of attacking dualism. But I packaged it in a way that I thought people would respond to and be excited about. Because when you see a name or a face that you recognize or connect with, maybe you've listened to some of their music or watched some of their movies, you're like, hey, I want to hear some theology from these people. But then the whole time we lean into the patristics because I was pretty convinced no one would buy a book on the patristic fathers. So I thought, well, I'll throw that in there too, because they very much believed the world was not so black and white cut as we embrace it today. And so I thought we could kind of lean into some of that for our conversation. So, yeah, I can start with a quote, or you can just start rolling, however you want to do it.
First of all, I think that sounds awesome because I know for me, probably one of the things that shifted in me majorly a little over 20, 25 years ago was when I realized one day that it was just as spiritual for me to get down on the floor and play with my kids as it was to go to a prayer meeting. Because when you're raised with this mentality of there's worldly stuff and there's, sacred and then you've got the secular, and the two never supposed to touch, come out and be separate, even though Jesus tells us to go in, right? We were constantly being told to come out, but then the Great Commission is go in, and so it seems like the church world as a whole, rather than be salt and light in the world and bring the sacred into the secular and marry it rather than being a separation, all we know how to do is form our own subcultures. I've got no issue with there being something called gospel music, but the fact that there's like Christian contemporary music, why can't there just be Christians who are in the music industry?
And that are good musicians? That would be helpful.
Well, hello. We have to have Christian movies. Why don't we just have Christians that are good directors, producers, and actors?
Right.
That do movies.
Right.
But it's almost like we have to have this us and them, this separate type of mentality. And when that's, my whole life growing up, That's all I knew, that's secular music. And that's, cause it was always along the mindset of, are we against that?
Yeah.
It wasn't what we were for. It was
Right.
always, well, can we listen to that? Are we against that? Can we listen to that kind of music? Can we listen to that? And then, man, the older I got, God started speaking to me big time through, like, first time my wife wanted me to go to an opera, I was like, oh. And I'm telling you what, I was so relaxed. I was like hearing God's voice like crazy sitting in that thing, the music, the orchestra music playing. And I was like, man, I said, this is absolutely beautiful. I mean, it calmed me down to a way where, I mean, God was speaking all kinds of stuff to me. I mean, sitting in the opera, and it's like, well, but that's not godly, the person that put that music together. And it's like, well, wait a minute, every good and perfect gift comes from the Father of lights. And so it's like people are like that with AI right now. They're freaking out, thinking Terminator and, like AI is the Antichrist. And it's the, the truth is, everything that's good comes from God. Yeah. What we do with it can pervert it. It can be demonically influenced. It's like anything. I mean, we've discovered in the last 20 years how good the hemp plant is for a lot of things for people, but it's the cocoa plant has good properties, but it's when man takes something that God gave a use to and then abnormally uses it, which is abuse. And then they abuse it and then they pervert it. And that's when stuff gets messed up. But it's almost like, we have to separate all this stuff rather than realize, no, this is all the kingdom. Yeah. The kingdom is for everyone. Right. And the kingdom encompasses everyone, whether they know it or not, because the kingdom is so much bigger than, that's worldly and that's godly. And we get just ridiculous with that stuff. And I think part of the problem is Romans 12:2. Be not conformed to this world. Yes. But be transformed by the renewing of your minds. You might know what is the good, the acceptable, and the perfect will of God. And people are like, well, if you really want to know the perfect will of God, then you can't do anything with the world. But that word world is a mistranslation. It's age. Yep. And what Paul was talking about was the age of law that was transitioning. That was transitioning out, and the age of grace was coming in. Yep. And it's not that it can't be applied to, worldly things, but Paul wasn't thinking about what you listen to in your music or, what you wear in your clothes. He wasn't thinking hemlines and hairdos, right? At all. Paul was thinking about, either you're keeping the oblations and the feast, because the kingdom is not for eating and drinking. It's not for meat offerings and drink offerings and all of that, but it's actually righteousness, peace, and joy. And righteousness, peace, and joy is everywhere. Right. Right. And it's for everyone. Yeah. Well, so one of the foundational verses, of course, that we go through with this holy ground everywhere theme is, of course, Moses encountering the burning bush. And I know that story from Sunday school. Sure. And I thought, well, that's a peculiar way of God, manifesting himself. And of course, I think what we tend to focus on, and I guess I did, I won't say it for anybody else, I focused on, okay, Moses, you should be aware this is a holy place. Take your sandals off. Where your feet are is holy ground. Yep. And so it's like we lean more into his response of, you need to get your shoes off because now God's here in this place. Right. But it's like there was this subtle shift began to occur in my heart where I was like, wait, God illuminates a shrub? Why wasn't it a golden altar? Why wasn't it a temple edifice somewhere or a gigantic diamond? No, it's a shrub that's everywhere. Right. And then you lean in further. It wasn't Moses recognizing that God was there for God to show up. Moses recognized he'd already been there. He was already there illuminating that bush. Yep. And so it's like, no, that's the meat of the moment, is you had no idea you were even on holy ground because you expected it to look a certain way. But now that you know to look, you're going to find holy ground everywhere. Yep. And whether it be music, again, TV, all those things. So I'll throw out a quote to you. Yeah. So Leonard Cohen, very well-known, famous musician. I love this quote. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. And when I first heard that, I was like, okay, that's really cool. Yeah. There's something really Christological to that thought. Very now, much. Did he
Did he think that at all? I have no idea. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Because God has a way of just finding his way even through statements just like that. And I don't want to give too much away, but I'm really kicking around even a book in the future, something about theology through the cracks. And so finding where God actually seeps through everything that we're working through in life itself.
It's John 1. He's the light and the light of every man.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's light in every human. You know, I mean, to me, probably, and then this is something, it's been a few years since I've really like preached it as a whole message, but you know, it's Acts chapter 10. You know, Peter gets caught up. He's on a rooftop and God rolls out, you know, some pork to him and some barbecue. And as a good Jew, he'd never touched any of that.
Sounds delicious.
Right. And God, you know, God shows him barbecue.
Yep.
He comes down from the rooftop and Cornelius' servant is knocking at the door saying, you know, God spoke to my master Cornelius that we need to come get, you know, Peter here at Simon's house, at the tanner's house. And then he says, yeah, I'm going to come because God just showed me to call no man unholy or unclean, that God has made clean. But it's like, God didn't show him anything about men. God showed him pork.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's like God shows him some pigs. And what he gets from that, you know, is then there's call no man unclean, uncommon, or unholy. And so, I mean, there's some huge implications to that whole passage because, you know, the struggle is people are like, yeah, but you've not met my neighbor. You know, I mean, my neighbor's unclean, man. My neighbor is unholy. I mean, I had our first house that we bought back in Michigan, our next door neighbor, he was totally a flower child from the 70s. He was an Irish guy who always walked around without his shirt on, always had a Guinness in his hand, had a big long beard, drove a little orange MG convertible. I mean, you know, and he was a psychology professor at the local high school.
Nice.
And so, you know, but I mean, we just loved him. You know, I mean, he'd come over to our house, hey, preacher, blankety, blank, you know, he'd be cussing and, you know, drinking his beer. And then we'd talk, but we'd sit on my porch and we'd talk about suke. You know, I mean, we'd start talking about the soul and he'd say, man, I learned that in Psychology 101. That's in the Bible, you know? And I mean, then we talk about something else. We talk about soul and spirit. And he'd be like, man, I learned that in college. That's in the Bible. It would just freak him out, you know, but I was like, yeah, because there's no secular and sacred, you know, I mean, all of this is the kingdom of God. And I remember one time I'd got done preaching at my parents' church, our home church, and we pulled up, and after service, we ate, and we pulled up to the house, and he comes walking up. He always wanted to give everybody a hug. You know, he's a hugger. And so his name was Tom, and Tom comes up. He's giving us hugs, and I said to him, I said, Tom, I used you as a sermon illustration of my sermon this morning. He goes, yeah. You told everybody about your drunk cussing next door neighbor, right? I said, no. I said, actually, I told them that when we're away in the wintertime for a month or two on a trip that, you know, you snowblow our driveway and you keep everything clean so it looks like someone lives there. There's times where, you know, when we're gone for a couple of weeks in the summer, you mow our lawn for us. And I tell them that my next door neighbor who doesn't claim to know anything about God and really, you know, isn't really excited about church actually shows me the kingdom more than a lot of them because he loves his neighbor as he loves himself. And then he went, huh. And I told him, I said, Tom, you're not far from the kingdom. And he said, huh, that's good. You know, and then went on talking about something else. But, you know, I remember being at a church in Michigan one time mentioning that. And I got done and I was preaching. It was a bishop. The bishop got up after I got done preaching and he said, well, you know, everybody, you know, I understand what the man of God is saying, but I just want you to know right now, if my neighbor came over with a beer in his hand and his shirt off and cussing, he's getting off my property. You know, and I'm sitting there like really? So, but that's going to reach him. Right. You know, I mean, let's be, you know, my property is holy. You know, yours isn't. You know, I'm too holy for thouist for you to cussest around meist. I mean, it was just so silly and so ludicrous, but that's so much of the mentality of a lot of the Christian world. And it's like those people are over there, we're over here. And then we form cultures and divides, and Jesus came to remove all those divides. And he's like, listen, you know, your neighbor might talk unholy and unclean. He might act unholy and unclean, but from God's perspective, God says, don't call any man unclean, because
Yes.
I made him clean, and I made him clean at the cross.
Yeah.
I didn't made him clean when they prayed a prayer.
Right.
You know, so from my perspective, they're clean, but why are they living unclean? Because they don't know they're clean.
Yes.
No
Yeah.
one gave them the good news.
Yeah.
They've never awakened to righteousness and stopped sinning. They've never awakened to the reality that they're a beloved son and daughter of God, which is what the gospel presents to them.
Yeah.
And that's what, to me, you know, unifies this whole idea of secular and sacred. Is it's like, no, it's all sacred.
Yeah.
Because it's all the kingdom.
Yeah. I want to take a moment to share my new book with you. It was born out of my own journey, filled with questions, doubts, and revelations about the nature of God. It challenges the distorted images we have often about God, urging us to see Him through the lens of Jesus. I decided to offer this book on a pay-what-you-want basis because I believe the message of the Warshak God is way too important for anything to get in the way, especially finances. The Warshak God isn't just another theological treatise. It's an invitation to explore, to break down barriers, the ones we built around our understanding of God, guided by the true character and nature of Jesus. If you've ever felt puzzled by the images of a wrathful or distant God, or if you're seeking a deeper, more loving relationship with the divine, this is the book for you. Let's rediscover God together, not as a figure marred by our projections and fears, but as the loving, compassionate Father Jesus showed Him to be. Join me on this journey, pay what you can, and let's explore the heart of God together. You can find the Warshak God at hesterbook.com. And now, back to the Word. I got another quote for you.
Yeah.
So Lady Gaga. So we're talking about people that are probably, we're sure they're evil, right? I mean, we're just sure. We're sure they're unclean. You know, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I've heard people say that.
Right.
I mean, you just do a post on social media and people will be like, you have zero discernment when you're making some of these posts.
Absolutely.
So how about this quote? This is straight from Lady Gaga. I believe in Jesus. I believe in God. I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual and I pray every day.
Yep.
And one of the responses was, there's no discernment, zero discernment there in this post.
Of course.
And I'm like, that wasn't the point of the post. The
Right.
point of the post was, again, to challenge this notion. Can you find God in everything? Well, certainly we can find Him in Lady Gaga. She is a daughter of our good Father, right?
Come on.
But then leaning into even statements like that. So challenging religion, I'm like, I'm on board. I'm spiritual. But that whole religious mechanism, I'm over it.
Yep.
I mean, I have conversations like that all day.
Yep.
You know, most of the with Christians.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm done with all this church stuff.
Yep.
I love God, but people are crazy. You know, and I think it's interesting. We won't show the same grace to someone that's walking out their journey, obviously in a different way.
Yeah.
But they're still asking the same questions and they're still going through the same process.
Well, and again, I think so much of this goes back to our wrong idea of what the gospel actually is.
Right.
You know, the gospel is not an announcement of our sinship, but our sonship.
Yes.
And if we really believe, I mean, I don't think most people really believe that when Paul said in Ephesians, there's one Lord, there's one faith, there's one baptism, one Father of us all, who is above all and through all and in all. I mean, because I've had preachers argue with me and say, yeah, but Paul there was talking to believers at Ephesus. And I'm like, yeah, but the chapter before, he's talking about the divide and God actually removing the middle wall that separates
Yes.
the secular and sacred, the Jew from the Greek. And then he goes on to say, then, you know, but he's the Father of us all. And he's in all. So, you know, the gospel is not an announcement of trying to get Christ to people, but revealing Christ in people. Because the mystery hidden from the ages, Paul said in Colossians, is a mystery given to the church for Gentiles or people that were not a part of the covenant. And the mystery is Christ. And the Greek actually says Christ in and amongst all of us.
Yes.
The hope of glory. And it's like, if you can see Christ in everyone, now that doesn't mean that they have awakened to Christ in them. The language I like to use is this: everyone's in Christ because you can't live outside of Christ. It's impossible to not be in Christ. Right. He's above all, through all, in all. He encompasses all things. He created all things. I mean, it's ridiculous to think you can live outside of Christ. In Him we live and move and have our being. Yeah. And Paul was talking to pagans there. Right. But not everyone is awakened to Christ in them. And when we awaken to Christ in us is then, and it's not that we invited Him in, it's that we turned to Christ and the veil got removed. And when a veil is removed, something doesn't show up that wasn't there. something simply revealed that was always there.
Yes.
And so, the gospel is a revealing of Christ in us, not a revealing of Christ to us. And I think that's where this whole thing has got shifted, and especially post-Augustinian,
right.
Christianity, where it put everything, here and there rather than, no. I mean, I use the example, and I don't have a quote from him, but Gene Simmons. Mm-hmm. I still remember the first time, now it's been, I don't know, it had to have been 7-8 years ago, but, his family did a reality TV show called Simmons Family Jewels. Mm-hmm. And the first time I watched it, it got over, and I must have laughed for 20 minutes, belly laugh. And my wife's like, "What are you laughing about?" And I'm like, when I was growing up, this guy was the devil. Right. KISS was Knights in Satan's Service. Every youth camp, they were talking about backmasking. And, we had, we were burning albums and 8-tracks and cassettes. And, it was just, this guy was the devil. And they're like, you watch this show and he's Jewish. He's never done drugs. He's never got drunk. He's got really good kids, now, he slept with everything that moved,
right.
He had his issues there, but he got this sweet little Jewish mother that he cares for and takes care of. I'm sitting there thinking, this guy's not the devil. This was something he was doing to sell albums, but I got so tickled watching it because it was just, all I could think of was everything on how I was raised in the church world, which was, it wasn't a going into the world. Matter of fact, I still remember the day where, they would, teach. Now, listen, you need to stay away from certain people in school and stay away from these people because what's on them is going to rub off on you.
Absolutely.
Rather than teaching us who we were in Christ and how powerful God was in us. What they should have been teaching us is what's on us is going to rub off on them.
Exactly.
But instead it was, God wasn't everywhere.
Yeah.
He was here and he was here and he was here, but he's not, he's not there. And then we wonder why there's this continual divide and subcultures and everything else.
Yeah. Well, and two, it's worth kind of thinking as well. Dualism's not a uniquely Christian problem.
No.
It's been around a long time. So, Taoism is dualism, essentially.
Yeah. Well, Plato mainly came up with the whole
Platonic
idea.
dualism.
Yeah.
The yin-yang, there's light and darkness and light, two opposing forces.
Yep.
And actually, it's also interesting. So we're looking at some of the cultural aspect, which I think is super important.
Yeah.
But I think of just the spiritual dualism that is rampant still in much of the church. Big God, big devil, fighting it out over the destiny of eternity, you know? Yeah. And so it's like just even trying to get going, we keep setting ourselves back, keep setting ourselves up for failure. And so there's actually a lot to unpack in this whole world that we got to come to terms with, I know.
So, I think I did a social media post here a couple of weeks ago because if you watch any bit of Christian TV, like last night, I'm falling asleep, I'm kind of scrolling through Instagram and of course, because it was Sunday, you had all these different church services and I must have heard at least 10 times, preachers saying, well, the devil don't want you to know this and the devil don't want you to know that. And the devil. And I'm like, I don't even think about that. Paul said, give no place to the devil, and they're acting like the devil's omnipresent, and I remember for years I've had people, come to altars and ask me to pray for them, right? Yeah. And someone would say, well, I'd be like, what do you want me to pray for? Well, man, this last week, the devil was just really after me this last week, and I said, really? So there are 7 billion people on the planet, and you're so special that the devil, who can only be at one place in one time, and depending on whether you believe he's an entity, a mindset, an ego, or whatever. We don't even want to get into the theology of all that. Right. But is not God, and he's not Santa Claus. You don't know when you're sleeping and know when you're awake. Mm-hmm. Okay, just it's that kind of mentality. He showed up at your house this week. It's like such arrogance to even think that, like when Smith Wigglesworth, put in one of his books that, he was laying in bed one night and he felt this presence and turned, and it was the devil looking at him. Yeah. And he said, oh, just you. And he turned over and went to sleep. Maybe. Right. This guy had been raised in the dead and really harming the kingdom of darkness. But most folks, come on, man, you can't even be disciplined to get to the gym. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And then it's like
the devil was you got a flat tire
right
on your way to work.
Or the
devil's trying to keep me
my
from my
washing
job.
machine broke down this last week. I mean, it's almost like rather than just realize, you know what, life happens to everybody.
Right.
Bad things happen to good people, and you know, are there demonic influences that can affect you? Well, sure there are, but you know, to put everything on this devil character like he's literally that powerful, we're re-empowering, you know, a disempowered spirit. And according to Hebrews chapter 2, Jesus destroyed, rendered powerless. So I'm like, well, who in the world is everybody? You know, I mean, who's this guy that keeps showing up to everybody's house, you know, every day but people, they just don't think that stuff through. You know, they've heard it verbalized, and then preachers are constantly talking about it because, you know, if you don't talk about that, I mean, what do you got to talk about? Well, then you got to talk about who people are in Christ, and you know, that they're actually beloved sons, and you actually got to preach the gospel. Yeah.
Well, and I would throw in there, like the Pharisees, you know, when Jesus comes on the scene, man, temple business was good.
Yes, it was.
And man, you've got people perpetually bringing their offerings and sacrifices because they could never be free.
Yeah.
And then Jesus comes and says, hey, I'm going to shut this business down.
Right.
And it cost him his life.
Yeah, I mean, sure ultimately, they weren't very happy. No, they put a hit on him.
That's right. Absolutely, they did. Yeah, and we all participated in the hit, right?
Come on.
A couple resources. First of all, tell them how they can connect with you.
Yeah, I mean, just put in my name, Jamie Englehart. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Instagram, I mean, Facebook, all the social media platforms, or my website, which is graceforall.tv. And also you can get to my television program from there and everything on GEN that Matt's also a part of. So, yeah.
So with that in mind, I just want to remind you of a couple things. Go to hesterministries.org, and there you can figure out how to partner with us for our television show, for the podcast, all those different things. Also, if you want to take advantage of the book that we've been talking about a little bit, Holy Ground Everywhere, 2 volumes are out now. The 3rd volume will be out in the month of August. Those are available also there on hesterministries.org. Go to presenttruthacademy.org, and we'd love for you to partner with us. We want to journey with you in your discovery of truth, and you can just become a subscriber for that. It's easier now than ever to become a student, and we'd love to just partner with you. We've got some great stuff. Bishop Jamie's on there as a contributor, and among some other great voices as well.
Yep.
So we'll just encourage you to take advantage of that. But I want to remind you this before we finish up. If the kingdom isn't for everyone, well, then it's not for anyone. God bless you. Thank you so much for watching. I pray that it's been a blessing to you. I just want to mention to you the importance of being a partner support here at our show. I think you can agree we all need more peace, love, and joy in the world, and most of us are looking for love in all the wrong places. Your partnership ensures that we take the so good to be true gospel to millions of people around the world. Do me a favor and go to hesterministries.org/TV to give your gift of support today. Thank you so much. God bless you, and we'll see you next week.